So as we gather here tonight, we're gathering for something called Maundy Thursday, and this is a time for you and I to be able to celebrate something that we do every single month in the Methodist Church. You and I, we take communion the first Sunday of every month, and a lot of times we just come forward because it's part of the service. But tonight we have a chance to really celebrate, to really focus on what this actually means. And so for us to do that, we're going to look at a new commandment that Christ gives to the disciples, that Christ also gives to you and I. But I just want to set up this passage quickly for us. At this point, Judas has left the table. And when you hear what this new commandment is about, I think you'll understand. This passage of the new commandment is sandwiched in between Judas agreeing to betray Christ and Christ looking at Peter and telling him that Peter will deny Christ 3 times. It's these two events that are so sin-filled, these events of just horrible, horrible betrayal with this beautiful promise and this holy meal sandwiched in between. And that's just some of the emotions that Christ experienced during this time. But this commandment is also one of the last things that the disciples will hear as a group. This is really kind of one of Jesus' final teaching moments where he's trying to help the disciples understand. So John 13, verses 31 through 35, it says this. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. Little children," or the disciples, "yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me. And just as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." So you may be asking, well, why is this a new commandment? You can even go back and just reflect on the 10 commandments, where the first couple are about loving God and the rest are about loving others. But it really comes down to the word that's used for love. And the word that's used here is this word agape, or God's love for us. In the Greek, there's 3 different ways to talk about the word love. One is like relationally, like friends or significant others. Another is parent-child, and then you have agape. And so in here it's talking about agape, God's love for us. And really the best way to describe agape love is when I think about a camp I went to when I was a child. And this camp is called Delanco Camp. And at Delanco Camp, the lake there is called Lake Agape. And so when you go down and you walk down, and you can walk around the lake if you want, but down by the one end there's a dam, and if you stand at the dam and you try to look across, you can't see the other end of the lake because it's just so long. And that's like God's love for us. When you are at camp, even if you're just there for the 1 week, you have to take a swimming test because the lake is deep, just as God's love is for us. And so I love that lake's name is Lake Agape because it's this beautiful reminder of just how much God loves you and God loves me. The last part that Jesus puts on here is that we're to love one another just as Christ loves us and gave himself up for us. And that's how people will know that we have a relationship with Christ. People don't make that easy, do they? People can really challenge that. And so the question that I have for you is, how did you do in representing Christ this week? Some of you may be sweating nervously. Others of you are probably like, I'm good. This week I just kind of stuck to myself. Didn't let anybody get to me. I'm good. And that's great. I'm happy for you. But what we often fail to realize is how we interact with each other, is how we are the PR of Christ, of the church. And so while you may have had a good week this week, I'm sure there's someone in your life that I could talk to, or maybe that's no longer in your life that I could talk to, that would tell me not so positive things about how you showed who Christ was to them. We are the PR department of the church. And the type of love that we're called to show each other is a love under all circumstances. I want to close with how this new commandment relates to communion and what we're about to celebrate. When Jesus is talking about this, Jesus is aware of what will happen the next 24 hours to him. And there's really 3 words that come to mind. They just happen to all start with B's. Jesus is betrayed, Jesus is beaten, and Jesus sheds blood. None of those sound pleasant. And all of them sound painful. Some physical, some emotional, some mental. But Christ is telling us and telling the disciples that we are to love one another just as Christ loved us. Meaning that in the full understanding of what was going to happen, that Christ still says, I'm doing this for you. And that's why you should love other people under all circumstances. It's really hard to receive a gift. Have you noticed that? It's really, really hard to receive a gift because oftentimes when we receive a gift, we begin to think to ourselves, what have I done to deserve this? Someone took time to either make something or to go out and get something that they thought that you would like. And you often just think to yourself, I haven't done anything that I deserve something like this. And when we come for communion, it's not just a part of the service. You're coming and you're receiving a gift. And somehow that mentality of, wow, I can't believe this, you got this for me, it just doesn't come into play when we take communion for a lot of us. And that's why it's good to have reminders like Maundy, Thursday, where we sit and we contemplate and we think about why we take communion. We come and we receive this gift, this agape love is what we're coming forward and receiving. We're celebrating what Christ was willing to do for you and for me. But we come and we receive this gift so that we can give that gift to others. That's why it's so important in the Methodist Church that we celebrate communion once a month, because it serves as a reminder of how we should be treating each other. It serves as a reminder of exactly what Christ did, exactly what Christ went through the last 24 hours for you and for me, for agape love. I'm a pastor's kid. And so I never had to worry about being accepted at a church until I went to college. But if you've attended here your whole life, you understand what I'm talking about. You don't walk into church every Sunday and go, oh my gosh, I wonder if the people will accept me this week. But when you are visiting for the first time, or it's just your first couple of times at a new church, you get all worried, you freak out. In college, I remember thinking when I'm walking in to the First United Methodist in Lancaster, I was really wondering if I would be accepted. I was worried. What will they think of me? I'm this young college student. I was so cool. I had my hair tips frosted. Back like in the early 2000s when that was cool. And so I was worried. But the beautiful thing is about the meal that we're getting ready to receive is that a spot has been reserved for you. This communion table is open for all. In fact, every time that I serve communion, I make sure to highlight that regardless of your denomination, that this communion table is open for all, because John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, he wanted people to know that there is amazing grace that is provided through this meal. That people can learn about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ through this meal. And that